Hi everybody, welcome. In today's video, we are going to be bringing it back to the basics and I am going to show you how I apply my eyeshadow. So in this video, I am going to walk you through sort of my technique and give you some tips as far as how I apply and blend my eyeshadows. I've done a few different videos on my channel now with different eye looks, but I haven't actually explained to you sort of how I'm applying those shadows or what I'm doing. So I wanted to make this separate video walking you through my techniques for applying shadow and kind of what I do and what my process is. Before we get started, I do want to walk you through the different brushes because that is one thing that's going to be super important. For a basic eye look, you're going to need 5 different brushes. First thing you're going to need is you're going to need 2 of these in my opinion, and they are your kind of eyeshadow shader brushes. These are very standard eye brushes. Most commonly, they are used to kind of pack color onto your lid. Again, they are just kind of short, dense shader brushes. The reason I recommend 2 of these is that you use one for your shimmer shades and one for your mattes, just so that you don't kind of mix up where you want matte shadow and where you want shimmer shadow, obviously. And then you don't have to clean it between every single time that you're using it. So again, recommend 2 of these. If you only have one, I would reserve one of these for your matte shades, which will be our first step in the tutorial in just a second. And then you can resort to using your finger for any shimmer, lid shade, anything like that. The second brush that you're going to need, and this is probably the second most important brush, is a blending brush. My favorite blending brush of all time is by far the Sigma Blending E25 brush. This is the perfect size for your crease because this is going to actually go in kind of the socket of your eye. So for me, it's the perfect size. This brush in particular is the perfect shape. It's the perfect density. It's dense enough to where you can actually apply the color with it, but it's still soft enough that you can actually blend with it as well. So hands down, this is my favorite crease brush of all time. Again, this is going to make a huge difference in how your shadows go on and how they blend. Next brush that you're going to need is a blending brush. My favorite blending brush, again, is a Sigma brush. This is the Sigma Tapered Blending E40 brush. Now, a blending brush is something that's just really soft and really fluffy, and you're not meant to actually apply shadow with this brush. Again, it is strictly just for blending colors together. That is one of the most common mistakes that I see people making with a brush like this, is actually using a brush like this in place of your crease brush and actually using this to apply shadow. If you kind of look, like, this is just about as big as my eye. So right, if I try to actually apply shadow with a brush like this, I'm going to create just a big muddy mess. So again, you are not using a brush like this to actually apply shadow to your lid. You'll see in the tutorial, this is meant to just lightly kind of blend colors together. Again, the reason that I like this one is it's kind of the perfect combination between dense and soft but fluffy, and you'll see in the tutorial, again, I'm using mainly the tips of a brush like this. So again, this is a very important brush for blending your shadows together. And last but not least, this is probably the most important brush and my favorite brush of the bunch, and this is a pencil brush. This is again a Sigma brush, but I have used it so much the name of it has worn off, so I will leave the name of it for you in the description box below. Again, this brush is one of my favorites for applying your outer corner shade. Another brush that I like if you're looking for another option that's not Sigma is this Eco Tools brush. This I believe is actually only available in a set, but this is an Eco Tools smudge brush. Again, it's important that a brush like this kind of has a tip so you can be more precise with it. And the thing that makes this brush in particular so nice is that it's dense enough to actually apply color onto your lid, but it's soft enough that you can actually use it to also blend that color out. So again, this is hands down one of my favorite brushes. Just a note on the Sigma brushes, because I do like them so much. I have had these for at least 8 years and I continue to use them. They are great brushes. They're relatively affordable. So if you are looking for some great brushes to invest in, I definitely recommend Sigma. This video is obviously not sponsored by them, nothing like that. I just do really love these brushes. And like I mentioned before, brushes are going to make all the difference in how your shadows apply and how you're able to blend them. So it's really important that you have good quality brushes and that you know how to use them. Now that we've gone over all the brushes that you're going to need, let's go ahead and get into the tutorial and I will show you my technique for applying eyeshadow. Okay, so to start, the first thing that you're going to want to do is prep your eyelid before we put any shadow on there. So for me, I've already applied obviously all of my face makeup and I went ahead and applied concealer onto my lid as well. Basically what I did is I applied concealer underneath my eye, and then as I was blending, I just brought that up onto my eyelid as well, just to create a base for the shadow on the lid. But what we don't want is the lid to be tacky, because if it's tacky, when we start to put shadow on there, your shadows are going to grab and you're not going to be able to blend them as well. So what I'm doing now is I am taking just the powder that I used to set my face, so just a translucent powder, and I'm taking a big fluffy brush and I'm just going to set my eyelid. And again, what this is going to do is just create kind of a smooth base on our eyelid so that we can blend our shadows and nothing sticks or grabs. The next thing we're going to do is apply our brow bone shade. Now this is considered like a highlight shade, so this is going to be something that is 1 to 2 shades lighter than your skin tone. I am using for most of the tutorial this little kind of trio of shadows that I have from Makeup Forever. I'm gonna have to dig them out of the pan to actually get the shade names, so I will leave those in the description box down below. But I'm gonna take this shade here. So this is kind of just, it's a matte, pale, pinky kind of white shade. Again, for me, this is probably 2 shades lighter than my skin tone, so it's perfect for a highlight. So I'm going to use our shader brush for the matte shades, and I'm going to place this right underneath my brow bone, again as a highlight. And what I'm going to do also is I'm going to bring this down to where my crease starts, so that when I apply my crease shade, it has something to blend into. So I'm actually taking this on my brow bone, like I said, and bringing it all the way down to the crease. With that same shade, I'm picking up some more product and I'm also going to put this into my inner corner. So I am just kind of like stamping it onto the center part of my eye right here. And then I'm just using kind of like circular motions and dragging motions to blend this up into the kind of corner of my lid. And then I'm dragging just a little bit down below as well. The next thing that we're going to do is apply the crease shade. So this is probably the second most difficult step for most people. The trick here is that you want to use something that's 1 to 2 shades darker than your skin tone. And this is called a transition shade because again, it's just going to kind of blend everything from the lid to the outer corner. The mistake that people make here is using a shade that is way too dark. If you use something that's darker than 2 shades, you're just going to end up kind of with a big old smoky eye, and that's not what we're going for. Again, I'm putting this into the crease, so I often call this kind of a crease color, but it's also referred to as a transition shade. Again, just something a little bit darker to provide a little bit of dimension and then blend the rest of the shadows together. So again, I am using this shade here. You can see it's again a matte. We're sticking with matte here, and it is kind of a light brown taupey shade, but for me, this is deeper than my skin tone, so it's going to be perfect to put into the crease for me. Again, I will leave the actual shade of this in the description box down below. I'm just going to have to dig these out of the pan in order to find the actual shade name, so I will do that afterwards. But I'm going to take my crease brush now, and I'm just going to swirl my brush into here, and I'm going to tap off the excess so that we don't get any fallout anywhere. And then what I'm going to do is I'm holding this brush kind of on the back end so that I have a little bit less control, and it's just going to help so that nothing is pressed too hard, nothing sticks, nothing weird like that. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to kind of push this. I'm going to start right at the center, and I'm just going to kind of push this into my crease. And I'm going to work in sort of windshield wiper motions here, along with circular motions. So I'm just placing, again, this shade right into the crease here. I'm dragging it into the inner corner just a little bit, but don't focus too much of the product there. If you have hooded lids like I do, always try to kind of raise my eyebrows up to get that skin to lift so that there's no patchiness. And again, I'm just really kind of running this right along the socket of my eye here, and then I'm taking it up just a little bit onto my brow bone as well. The next thing that we're going to do is apply our lid shade. I am going to use a really kind of light champagne-y metallic shade here. And I'm going to use the other shader brush that we were going to use for our shimmers. And I'm going to pick up some of that, again, tapping off the excess, and I'm going to apply this right on the lid. So I think everybody kind of knows where the lid is, but I'm going to apply this all over. Some people like to do their outer corner shade before they do their shimmer. I like to do it first because I just find that it blends better. Again, this step here is pretty straightforward. The one thing I will say is just be careful not to apply any of the shimmer shade directly into the crease. We're gonna blend in a minute, so it looks a little harsh when you kind of look at it. You can tell where my crease shade is and where my lid shade is. So resist the temptation to bring this up into the crease. Just keep this on the lid here. I'm gonna also just take it really kind of slightly onto the inner portion there. If you want to, you can also use your finger. A lot of times fingers are a better way to go with kind of glittery or metallic shades. You just get better color payoff. I find it's, you know, a little less precise with your finger just because they tend to be like a little bit bigger, but as far as color payoff goes, you really can't go wrong with your finger. So now I've got my lid shade applied, but now we have to blend. So that's where this guy comes in. We're using just the tips of the brush, and I'm going to place this right in my crease and just really gently kind of run the colors together. You can see, so we still have the definition from the crease shade. You can tell where the crease shade is and you can tell where the lid shade is, but by blending it a little bit, you just lose that harshness and it kind of just transitions together a little bit better. Moving on now to probably the hardest part, the outer corner. So this is where we're going to use a deeper shade in our pencil brush. For me, I am going to use a shade out of my just regular old school Tartelette palette here, but any sort of dark matte shade is what you're going for here. So this is going to be probably one of the darker shades in any given palette that you're using. And again, this is where I'm going to use my pencil brush. So I'm going to take the shade Dreamer out of this palette here, and I'm going to get the product on my brush and again tap off the excess so we don't get any fallout. The trick with this shade, how I'm going to apply it, is I'm going to start on the outer third of my lid and apply it kind of to the lash line like an eyeliner. And again, just kind of the outer third of my lid is where I'm placing this to start. And now before I dip back for more product, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of fill in this outer V, just blending upwards. Again, start with less product, and then when you want to deepen it up, go back and grab more. Again, this isn't nearly enough product, but you kind of see what I'm doing. Again, I started at my lash line and I'm just working up, kind of filling in this outer third. Now what I'm going to do, and this is the advantage of the pencil brush, is I'm going to kind of take the tip of it and I'm going to draw on sort of where I want the product to be. So for me, because I have hooded eyes, I want to make sure that I bring this shade up onto my actual bone here just a little bit so that when I look straight ahead, you can see the different shades. My eyes are set back a little bit more and I have the hooded lids, so usually on me you can't see the different dimensions and the different shades unless I'm closing my eyes or blinking or something like that. So I fake it a little bit by drawing it up just a little bit more so that when my eyes are open, you can still see the different colors and the dimension. So again, I'm just kind of taking this. This is where the advantage of using a smaller pencil type brush comes in, because you can just kind of draw the color on exactly where you want it. And this is still just the first dip of the shadow that I'm using. I went back into my palette now and I picked up a little bit more, and I'm just adding it kind of right into, again, this sort of outer third of my lid here to just deepen it up a little bit. Now we're going to go back to blending. So I'm just kind of like dusting off this blending brush, and again, just using the kind of tips of it. I'm going to very, very lightly drag this over that outer shade to kind of blend it all together. I'm going to also go back to the brush that I used for the crease now, and I'm going to blend right up here on my brow bone, kind of where I put that crease shade. I'm going to blend these two together a little bit more. Again, I'm not pushing hard at all, really, really soft. If you push too hard, you're going to be dragging around too much of the product and it's going to start to look muddy. The next thing that I'm going to do, and I don't always do this, but I'm going to go back to our shimmery shade on this brush, and I'm going to apply just a little bit more kind of right to the center of my lid here, and then take my big fluffy blending brush and blend just a little bit more, just to intensify that shimmer shade right on the lid. Moving on now to the lower lash line, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that shimmer shade again on our shader brush, and I'm going to focus this on the inner portion of my lower lash line, just dragging it really close to the bottom there to brighten it up. And then I'm going to take our same pencil brush and I'm going to use the deep shade that we used in the outer corner, and I'm going to put that on the outer third of my lower lash line as well. Again, don't use too much here. You can always build it up. And this is again where kind of having that point on the pencil brush comes in handy, because you can get really close to the bottom of your lower lash line and be precise with this. And you're just kind of connecting here where you put that shade on your upper lid. So see how that all just kind of connects together there in the outer corner. And then again, I usually will go back with my crease brush here and just kind of, again, super, super gently just kind of blend those together. Okay, so now at this point, the eye look is pretty much complete. I typically call this good, but if you wanted to apply some liner, this would obviously be the point at which you would do it. For me, again, just because I have smaller eyes and I have smaller lid space, I don't typically like to apply eyeliner unless I'm going for like mega drama. Again, sometimes it can kind of close down your eyes if you don't have a ton of lid space. So that's kind of the case that I'm dealing with, which is why I skip liner for the most part. If you wanted to apply a little bit to the outer corners, you could do that too. But as far as kind of our basic, simplistic eye tutorial, this is where I would stop. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and apply some mascara and just finish off the look. And with that, we are done. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and that you found it helpful and that you picked up some new tips and tricks to help you guys out with your eyeshadow application. The one other thing that I will say, just like with anything, practice makes perfect. So practice, practice, practice. On the days that you're not wearing any makeup or you're not going anywhere, just sit down and do your eyeshadow and practice. I still do that all the time whenever I'm trying to play with new colors or test out a new technique, or sometimes just for the fun of it, I will sit down before I wash my face at night and just apply eyeshadow. And if it's a horrible, horrible mess, I'm just gonna wash my face anyway and move on with my evening. Thank you guys again so much for watching. If you found this video helpful and you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video.